Dragon SpaceX for a timeline.
And go ahead for timeline, Jay.
Okay, Resilience, we're seeing a pretty quiet timeline ahead of the scheduled PMC at 0720. If there are any optional events ahead of that you would like us to take, let us know. In the meantime, we're going to keep the loops pretty quiet, but we're here if you need us. And Resilience for SpaceX, and there's no response required on that at this time. Just let us know when you're ready. No rush. And also...
I'll do the PMC now. Sorry about that. I might have keyed the mic. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I'm saying there's no rush on the optional events. Just let us know whenever you decide. And in the meantime, just enjoy your time with your brand new spaceship, and let us know if you need us.
Okay, yeah, hey, we were just talking it over, and copy 720 for the plan, and we would like to go ahead and get configured to do the PMC. We'll go ahead and knock that out, and we're in section 6 of 4.012, so we're wrapping that up, stowing the last suits in the bags, and we'll be completing that here shortly. But yeah, we'd like to go ahead and set up for the first PMC.
Copy, we'll put that in work, and copy section 6 complete 4.012. And we'll let you know when you're configured.
Thank you.
And those were some calls from the Corps, the Crew Operations and Resources Engineer here in SpaceX at Hawthorne. To the crew, Crew 1 aboard Crew Dragon Resilience. Earlier you heard them discuss all of the crew members are out of the suits and they've started drying them. And just now, confirmation that it's going to be pretty quiet for the next little while. The crew is preparing for their PMC, or Private Medical Conference. All of the astronauts, when they go to the International Space Station, have a flight doctor, and they do routine check-ins to make sure that their health is well and that they are feeling good while aboard the International Space Station. And so the same thing happens here, just checking in with the crew on their Private Medical Conference. Of course, the next burn coming up, we had the phase burn earlier, and the next one won't be until tomorrow morning. That's the boost burn. That'll be the second of 5 major burns as Dragon continues its journey to the International Space Station. So Corps explained to the crew they're going to keep the loops pretty quiet, encourage them to enjoy their new spacecraft and some time together as well.
Dragon, SpaceX for PMC.
Go ahead for PMC.
Yeah, we're ready to configure at this time, so the next call will be from flight surgeon.
Resilience.
Thank you for joining us. Moments ago, at 7:27 p.m., the NASA SpaceX Crew 1 mission blasted off from Kennedy Space Center's historic Pad 39A with 4 astronauts, Americans Mike Hopkins, Victor Glover, Shannon Walker, and Japanese astronauts Soichi Noguchi. Today, we have a great group of people to talk about the Crew 1 mission in this post-launch press conference and talk about the many historic elements of this historic launch. Joining us today is NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine, Kathy Lueders, Associate Administrator for Human Exploration and Operations at NASA Headquarters, Hiroshi Sasaki, Vice President and Director General of JAXA's Human Spaceflight Technology Directorate, Steve Dickson, Administrator of the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, and Gwynne Shotwell, President and Chief Operating Officer of SpaceX. And I'm Bettina Inclon. In a moment, we'll hear their opening remarks, and then we'll take questions from the media. So let's start with Administrator Jim Bridenstine.
Well, thank you, Bettina. Another historic night, and I want to congratulate the NASA team and the SpaceX team for an amazing job yet again. So the big milestone here is that we are now moving away from development and test and into operational flights. And in fact, this operational flight was licensed by the FAA. So this is truly a commercial launch vehicle, and we're grateful to our partners at SpaceX for providing it and our partners at the FAA for licensing it. And I'm also grateful to our partners with Japan. And Hiroshi Sasaki, who's with us today, you should know that Japan is an amazing partner for the United States of America. We are exceptionally grateful that Japan would join us on Crew 1. And so this is a great day for the United States of America and a great day for Japan. And we look forward to many more years of a great partnership, not just in low Earth orbit, but all the way to the moon. So we're just really excited with how well it went today, and look forward to answering any questions.
Kathy?
Yeah, I cannot tell you. I know. Thank you, Gwynne. It's been quite a journey for the team that's been out here and working so hard. This is really an amazing day for us. I can't tell you. I'm just like pretty choked up a little bit thinking about, the folks that have spent years of their lives getting ready for this mission, and being able to see the crew fly today was just phenomenal. We've talked a lot about firsts, and this mission is an example of multiple firsts for us. A partnership across agencies with the FAA, obviously, FCC, first commercial mission, a partnership across our international partners, and having, the Sasaki-san here is an example, and having Soichi on the flight is just an amazing experience for us. But most of all, it's a partnership with SpaceX and our commercial partners. And, leaving the team over there in the firing room, everybody is so fired up. They're so excited about this mission, but we're not done yet. We need to keep going. That spacecraft's out there with those 4 precious crew members on them, and we're going to get them safely to the International Space Station tomorrow, right? And but it was a beautiful launch today, and really excited, and thank you.
First of all, on behalf of JAXA, I'd like to express my appreciation to all staff who are engaged in the launch operations during the COVID-19 situations. The mission is still ongoing, but I would like to congratulate the launch success first. I have seen lots of launches of the Japanese rocket, but it is the first time to see the launch of Falcon 9. The night launch was very beautiful, and it was even more impressive considering that the 4 crew members, including JAXA astronaut Noguchi, were on board. It is very significant for JAXA that astronaut Noguchi will board the first operational flight of Crew Dragon and launches from Kennedy Space Center. I believe that this is an outcome of the cooperation between NASA and JAXA. And efforts of JAXA, including the astronaut Noguchi, have been highly evaluated by the partners. Astronaut Noguchi will be involved in a variety of activities on the ISS, and he will conduct science activities using microgravity environment and demonstrate the technologies for the future. Currently, JAXA and NASA are working on the framework of Japan-US Open Platform Partnership Program to achieve results through the mutual use of experimental equipment, and would like to further deepen the cooperation between Japan and US. In July, the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science and Technology of Japan and NASA signed the Joint Exploration Declaration of Intent for lunar cooperation. I believe the human space activities will expand from the ISS to the moon. I am looking forward to enjoy the new era and going together for the future. Once again, congratulations on the successful launch.
Well, on behalf of 45,000 aerospace professionals at the FAA, it is truly an honor and a privilege. This is a big night for many of us, and it's a big night for the FAA. But I first want to offer my congratulations, heartfelt congratulations to Jim and the NASA team, Sasaki-san, and JAXA, of course, our Japanese partners, and the SpaceX team led by Elon Musk and Gwynne Shotwell. The energy in the room is palpable, and it is a tremendous accomplishment for our country and for humankind as we begin the next significant step towards the commercialization, in this case, of low Earth orbit. You know, this launch is another major milestone in space transportation. It's a culmination of a lot of hard work from a lot of people in government and industry, all working closely together. It's also the first FAA-licensed orbital human spaceflight launch. Our job in this mission is to protect public safety, property, and national security, and we've done that. We'll continue to work with the commercial space industry and NASA to ensure that we continue to meet these priorities. And we'll continue our efforts to help make the airspace system more flexible and dynamic so we can support the expected increase in space operations in the coming years. As a matter of fact, I received a text from our FAA Command Center just outside Washington, D.C., that we released the airspace for commercial traffic within 20 minutes of the launch. And we continue to refine our capabilities there. So it's a pleasure to be with you tonight. And again, congratulations to everyone on a successful start to a great mission.
Gwynne?
Thanks, Bettina. I'm thrilled to be here today. I want to make sure I get all the thank yous. Thanks to NASA to start with for the partnership that we've had. This journey began really in August of 2006 when we first started working on Dragon and Falcon 9 together. So thank you for your partnership. Kathy, we've been working together for quite some time, since then, actually, from the beginning. I want to thank the 45th Space Wing, another mission partner here. I want to thank the FAA. Steve, appreciate all your support. And Sasaki-san, I wanted to thank you as well for both coming and participating, but also for allowing Soichi to fly on a Dragon. I want to thank SpaceX employees who have worked hard and tirelessly through pretty extraordinary times. They continue to amaze me, and I'm so proud of them. So I wanted to thank them for that as well. Could not be more proud of the work that we've all done together here today. Falcon 9 the launch looked beautiful. I don't have any specifics on any anomalies that we had, which is great. We'll get more data as we go. Dragon was dropped off roughly 12 minutes into the mission into a beautiful orbit, and she's operating just fine, all systems nominal. Executed a burn, and I think there's 2 more to go. We approach the space station in a little over 24 hours from now. And then we'll be able to breathe a sigh of relief 26 or so hours from now, once we hand the crew over to NASA. In the next 15 months, we should be flying roughly 7 Dragon missions. And this mission represents the initiation of a Dragon in orbit continuously, knocking on wood, and certainly is really the beginning of a new era in human spaceflight. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you all. I know that I could speak for millions that are just really excited to see these 4 astronauts on the Crew Dragon Resilience and get to the International Space Station for this important mission. So with that, we'll take some questions. Our first question is from Marcia Dunn.
Hello?
Yes, Marcia, we can hear you.
Yes, great. Hi, for Ms. Shotwell, please. I'm curious, how wired into the launch was Elon? Was he backseat driving, so to speak? And curious as to where he actually monitored all the action from. Thank you.
So Elon was tied in very closely to the launch. I have a series of texts to prove it. As usual, he, regardless of where he is on the planet, he is watching closely and providing guidance and support.
Great. Our next question comes from Michael Sheets from CNBC.
Hi, my first question is for Gwynne. SpaceX has really broken a new ceiling here in terms of doing something that only countries had done before. How many other companies do you see entering the orbital human spaceflight market in the next decade and kind of following in your footsteps now that you guys have done it?
You know, I'm a horrible predictor. I never get it right. So I think what you can count on is what I say won't be right. Obviously, we expect to have flights from Boeing upcoming, but I don't think you're asking about the existing providers. I think you're talking about new ones. This is a tough business to break into. I wouldn't expect any in the next 5 years, but hopefully within 10, there'll be plenty of folks doing this kind of work to make it more accessible to more folks.
Our next question comes from Eric Berger from Ars Technica.
Hi, congratulations, everyone. Such a big night for human spaceflight. I think this is a question for Kathy, but if someone else wants to take it, that's fine too. Going back to yesterday's 24-hour delay, it's my understanding the primary driver of that was the fact that the drone ship couldn't get out of port due to Tropical Storm Eta. And I was just wondering, a few years ago, Kathy, could you imagine, scrubbing or holding a launch for a day, to recover the first stage of a rocket?
No, but we were also, I think, a few years ago weren't looking at the cadence that we had and trying to be as cost effective on our services going forward, right? This has been a horrendous year for storms. I don't think if you would have asked me a few years ago if we would have had, 5 storms hit the Louisiana coast and another set hit me, a couple hitting Florida in November, I would have been surprised too. But, with the systems that we have, there's constraints and big choices. And one of those choices was we had a beautiful opportunity on Sunday. And so that was a big part of the conversation and us deciding to pick this day. Yesterday, it ended up not being that great a day around the launch time. So this was a great day, and it was a great launch. And it was an amazing experience.
Yeah, it was a really incredible experience. I think all of us are still excited about seeing it. Our next question comes from Irene Klotz from Aviation Week.
Thanks, Bettina. Congratulations, everyone. My question is for Gwynne. The 15-month 7 Dragons, are you counting commercial missions in that? And can you give us an update on where you stand on the commercial flights, aside from, I think, the Axiom mission was now officially on the books for the end of next year. Is there anything else? Thanks.
So I believe we did count 1 commercial mission in there, but I don't want to do math in public. I will call you if I got that one wrong. We'll be flying the Crew 2 mission in about 4.5 months, and then Crew 3 roughly, possibly 6 months later. We do hope to fly a commercial mission with Axiom, and maybe some other fun missions, which I'll chat about later.
Our next question comes from David Curley.
Gwynne Shotwell, kind of curious about what happened to your emotions when they had to reopen the hatch. And can you explain to me the technology? I think we're all kind of used to a hatch closing. You crank the wheel and it's closed. It seems to be a little bit longer process. I don't understand everything that you've got going there, but can you just kind of talk about the hatch and what happened?
So I'm not sure I heard you. If you're asking about the do-over on the hatch operation that we had today? So we closed the hatch the first time, and the capsule did not pass its leak checks. So we opened it and took a look at the seals, found a little bit of FOD, cleaned that up, adjusted the seals, and reclosed the hatch. And the Dragon capsule passed its leak check.
Okay.
We probably need to make that operation a little smoother, but we got it done.
Thank you, Gwynne. Our next question comes from Jeff Faust.
Hi, question for either Gwynne or Kathy. There were some alerts after Crew Dragon made it to orbit about the thermal control system. It looks like that was resolved, but was that just a false alarm, or was that an actual issue with the thermal control system that has since been corrected? Thanks.
Well, what's amazing in the first hour of flight is kind of all the systems are activated, right? And so the fault detection systems are working, and what happened was it hit a fitter, and that kind of that happens during system startups, and it did exactly what it was supposed to do. It flipped over to the second leg. We have a lot of redundancy in the system, and then the team was able to go in and ended up clearing the faults, and both legs are back up and running. So this is not it's not an unusual thing to happen when systems are started up like this. We go through the launch, and then we kind of hang out for that first hour of Dragon activation, because it kind of is an amazing thing, and it goes through and checks out all the different parts of it and gives us a good health check for the way the spacecraft's working. And like Gwynne said, Dragon's flying beautifully right now.
Thank you both. Our next question comes from Joey Roulette, Reuters.
Hey, thanks, Bettina. Question for Kathy. I just wanted to follow up on that. Can you kind of give us a sense of what happened with the thermal control system? And for Gwynne, how many private astronaut missions do you guys have booked up right now? Can you give us like a ballpark on maybe how much you're in talks for, or how much you have solidified? Thanks.
Well, sometimes it's just a sensor issue, right? And it's just a startup sensor getting everything aligned. And so actually, nothing really happened to the system. It was kind of just a function of kind of running through. And when you have all these checks and your system's doing all the checks, sometimes it'll hit a limit and then flip over, and then you reset the pieces of it. And so actually we have 2 good loops now, and the system's working great. So like I said, it's just a little bit of a startup glitch.
Thank you. Paul Brinkman, UPI, is our next reporter. Paul?
Yeah, thanks. I'm really thinking about the astronauts in space now, and poor people trying to sleep after launching on a rocket and flying around the Earth on a new spacecraft. My understanding is the flight time tonight apparently was extended partly for their sleep time, and we've heard how important it is that they get proper sleep. But I'm thinking that must be kind of a challenge. So I guess, Kathy or Gwynne, could you talk a little bit about how well astronauts sleep in space, and is it a really peaceful ride aboard Dragon now as it's cruising in orbit, or is there a lights out rule or a no talking rule? So, thanks.
Well, they do have little curtains that they cover the windows, and they do get out of their suits and get comfortable and lay down. And you have to realize too, you're in 0G too, right? So you're in a little bit different position. These are experienced crew members, and they know that they've got to get their rest and work through them. And so the other really great thing is you can watch them, because there'll be a lot of NASA coverage of the mission over this next 26 hours. So you'll be able to see the crew during different activities, not while they're sleeping, but doing other activities. And so you'll be able to watch along what they do. These folks know what they're doing. They're very experienced. They know that they got to get their rest so that they can do the sequence of events that are coming up for docking as safely as possible.
Yeah. Still would be really hard to sleep right now. I'd be really excited.
They were having a lot of fun. If you notice them, you guys need to watch them. They were actually, this crew was, they were there, and they were enjoying being in space again.
Yeah, what an experience. Our next question comes from Stephen Clark.
Hi, congratulations, Stephen Clark from Spaceflight now. Just wanted to clarify one thing from Gwynne, the 7 Dragon missions in the next 15 months, I think you said. Do those include the cargo missions, or are those all crew missions? And also, I wanted to get an update on your Crew Dragon production line. How many Crew Dragons are currently being built? You have 2 that have launched now. Do you have any other Crew Dragons being assembled right now, or will you be doing your near-term missions with these 2 vehicles? Thanks.
Yeah, so I was hedging a little bit. I did check my phone, and the 7 missions I was talking about were all for NASA, CRS 21 through 24, and 3 crew missions. But I was hedging just in case one of those doesn't go, to include a commercial mission between now and then. And then the other question you asked was there a second part? Oh, how many Dragons in production? Thanks, Steve. You want to? So we have the Demo 2 Dragon is in the refurbishment process to fly Crew 2. Dragon, there's a Dragon capsule. There's also the CRS 21 capsule. I think there's 2 more cargo capsules after that, and we will have 3 additional Crew Dragon capsules, I believe. And they're all to some extent in production right now.
Okay. So our next question comes from David Mosier of Business Insider.
Thank you for taking my question. Kathy, I understand this docking will be fully automated that's coming up, but is there anything, any step you're particularly concerned about or will be watching closely? And Gwynne, you mentioned some anomaly data. Maybe I misheard you, but is there anything SpaceX and NASA saw during launch or is seeing in orbit that needs further investigating? Thanks.
So the Dragon is designed to have an automated docking, and right now all the systems are working, and so we're not expecting there to be any issues with the docking. And obviously, you know, that they'll be checking out the systems as they get near station, and they check all the different sensor suites and make sure that things are functioning. And then the crew is also trained on being able to do some kind of backup maneuvers too. But right now, we're not expecting any issues, and I'm sure docking tomorrow will go smoothly.
Great. So, wanted to get one more question for Hiroshi Sasaki. We know that this mission had a lot of great milestones. Not only is it the first crew rotation from a commercial space vehicle, but also you're carrying the first international astronaut on this mission. What is next for JAXA in the future?
Next astronauts. Currently, we want to send astronaut Hoshide. I will currently on the Crew Dragon 2. I hope he will become the ISS commander.
Fantastic. Well, we're gonna start wrapping up this press conference. But before we do that, I'd like to turn it over to Administrator Bridenstine for some closing remarks.
Well, sure. I think what we've seen today is really remarkable. So much work by so many people over a sustained period of time. Again, thank you to SpaceX and Gwynne Shotwell and Elon Musk for being an amazing partner to NASA for all of these years. I think it's also important to recognize Kathy Lueders, who was very involved in the commercial resupply program, which then led to the development of a commercial crew program. And of course, Kathy has done amazing work through both of those programs, getting us to where we are as an agency now with commercial crew, and doing such an amazing job that we decided to put her in charge of all human spaceflight for NASA. So she's now responsible for getting us to the moon and onto Mars. So just want to say to Kathy Lueders, NASA is so grateful for all of your leadership for all of these years. And I can't wait to see the amazing things that you and the team do in the future. I also want to thank our friends from Japan. Again, there is no better partner to the United States of America when it comes to space exploration than the nation of Japan. JAXA has been with us for a very, very long time. They will be with us. You will be with us for a long time into the future. When we think about the Artemis program, we thank you for your commitment to the Artemis program, for a sustainable return to the moon, and of course, eventually missions to Mars. And Japan has been an amazing partner, so thank you. And of course, for this mission, so unique in that we are now going into basically operational missions that are commercial in nature, where NASA is a customer. Our goal has been and will be to be one customer of many customers in a very robust commercial marketplace in low Earth orbit. But we also want to have numerous providers that are competing on cost and innovation, and of course, safety. We've seen amazing work from SpaceX already. There's more coming from Boeing. But I think this ecosystem, this very virtuous cycle of continuous development is going to pay benefits to the American taxpayer and space exploration. And as these missions go forward and we get more and more into the commercial aspects of it, the FAA is going to continue to be a critical partner. And we're grateful to the leadership there at the FAA for licensing this launch and moving us forward as a nation into this new era of commercial human spaceflight into orbital space. So many amazing things on this flight. As Kathy said earlier, it is not over. This was a beautiful launch, and we are all very excited about the launch. But remember, this is a 6-month mission, and it's the first of many. And I will tell you that we use the word operational. Make no mistake, when you're flying into space, it is always there's always risk, and we will always be diligent. And we have all the confidence in the world in SpaceX and in the NASA team, in our partners, international partners, FAA, and of course Boeing upcoming, which is going to be exciting. So I'm just very, very thrilled about how today went and look forward to so many great days in the future.
Thank you, Jim. So stay with us. We have lots of exciting news. As we've mentioned, we'll be having live continuous coverage on NASA television through docking, which will happen at 11 p.m. Tomorrow. And we'll also, of course, have the welcome ceremony. You can get all this information and lots more at nasa.gov. Again, nasa.gov, and you can watch the live broadcast on NASA TV. So thank you so much for joining us, and have a good night.
Here's our first live look inside the suit-up room. Crew Dragon Commander Mike Hopkins was born in Lebanon, Missouri.
Pilot Victor Glover is a native of Pomona, California.
And Mission Specialist Shannon Walker is from Houston, Texas.
Mission Specialist Soichi Noguchi is from Yokohama, Kanagawa, Japan.
Here they come, walking down the hall.
Everyone's quite happy there.
Yeah, so cool. They're looking for people. They're looking for the people that have helped them all along the way, too, and wanted to make eye contact. Here they come. The Crew 1 astronauts now beginning their journey to the launch pad ahead of this historic mission to the International Space Station.
This is Core on countdown 1 for timeline. The crew is departing for the pad on schedule.
This is chase car, so you can be along with the crew every step of the way.
It's kind of like the pre-flight, right? To walk around your vehicle before you get in and fly. I love this shot. You know, when this was being designed, it was definitely a forward-thinking design.
And you can see on your screen the crew beginning the ingress process already.
They are checking to make sure the suits are ready. They're helping them connect the umbilicals. They're buckling them in.
And Dragon SpaceX hatch is closed.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition.
Not even gravity contains humanity when we explore as one for all.
What you're seeing right now on your screen is a live view from Dragon, Resilience right now, looking back at Earth. What an awesome view. This is just us being able to see it from the camera, but the crew is getting that live right now.
Yeah, and they launched at 7:27 p.m. Eastern, so it's been a couple of hours now that they've been in low Earth orbit. As we said earlier, it's a 27-hour journey this time for them to the International Space Station, and they are in between burns. There's not another burn scheduled until tomorrow morning, the boost burn. We had the successful phase burn earlier tonight, but the crew are out of their suits, perhaps have enjoyed their meal for the evening, and in a few hours they'll be getting into their sleep period, but for right now I think they're probably just enjoying time together and in their new spacecraft, as the Corps encouraged them to do.
And they did mention a few minutes ago that they needed about 20 more minutes, so maybe under 20 minutes we might get a live view inside of the capsule. For now, we've got this exterior camera view on Dragon of Earth as it's coasting towards the International Space Station.
We're not going anywhere. We are continuing to listen into the loops or the nets for all the calls that Corps is making to the crew and anything that you should be aware of. We're just enjoying these views for right now, and we will be standing by.
What you're seeing on your screen is Mission Control Hawthorne, and we are doing a handover of the folks on console. As a reminder, this is a 27.5-hour coast to the International Space Station, so we will be working in ships, and as you can see Mission Control Hawthorne on your screen, they are working on handover as we speak.
Yeah, and we're going to take a few more Ask NASA questions in the meantime. And this one, how often do the astronauts do spacewalks, and can they get Wi-Fi on the station? Good questions. The astronauts only do spacewalks as often as they have to. You know, a lot of them say it's one of their favorite things to do, or one of their favorite parts of their mission was going on a spacewalk. But it is still, you know, a dangerous task to go out into really a vacuum of space, and so we only do them whenever the space station needs upgrades or additions, and so that is, you know, there's not really necessarily a set schedule of how often they do spacewalks. And when it comes to Wi-Fi, they do have internet aboard the International Space Station. I'm not 100% sure of how the internet runs, but they do have internet.
They do have internet. As you mentioned earlier, they are able to get on Twitter.
Yes.
So we do know that. We've got another question. What kind of engines were used to make this rocket? Well, this was a Falcon 9 rocket with a Dragon on top of it. So Falcon 9 uses Merlin 1 or M1D engines for the first stage, and an MVAC or Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage. So those are the engines on the booster vehicle, and then Dragon uses Draco thrusters as their engines.
Oh, I love this question. Will astronauts drink coffee in ISS? They do get to drink coffee on the space station. We actually had an astronaut come back from the space station and then start designing a zero-G coffee cup so that you kind of get that first sip feeling in the morning rather than having to drink it out of a straw. But they do have coffee on the International Space Station. I don't think we could ask them to go to space and not give them coffee for 6 months.
Coffee is very important. Got another question. Can those aboard the International Space Station see the launch of Crew 1 Dragon from space?
You know, it was really cool. The International Space Station flew over Kennedy Space Center 37 seconds before liftoff tonight. And so I don't know if maybe someone was in the cupola trying to catch pictures. They were scheduled to be in their sleep period at that time. So they may have been up watching it. They may have been out the window looking for it. Maybe we'll find out if they were able to see it or if they just continued sleeping.
Right. The timing seems about right, and I believe they could get a decent view of the Cape or the launch pad during that time. So maybe we'll get an update later to see if anybody was able to catch it.
That'd be really cool. And this question, how do astronauts celebrate their birthdays aboard the ISS? You know, I think it's always very cool. It's actually, Kate Rubins launched to the space station on her birthday just a couple of months ago. So that's how she celebrated. But others, sometimes, you know, they'll have a small little get-together on the station, everybody enjoying a meal together for their birthday. They can also have, or family members can also send up cards or small gifts on some of the resupply missions, so they might be able to open up a birthday card from their family, little touches like that.
Well, it sounds like Kate got one of the coolest birthday candles.
Absolutely, and the largest.
What is the Crew Dragon team doing between now and docking tomorrow night? Well, right now they're coasting. They did get out of their suits, their space suits, so they're probably hanging out inside of Dragon, taking in the views. But do they have anything else planned specifically? I know that they have planned sleep, 8 hours of sleep, but is there anything else that they need to be doing on Dragon while they're making their way to the station?
I don't think so tonight. We mentioned they had their PMC, or their private medical conference. That's just a checkup, essentially, with a flight doctor here on the ground. All of our astronauts aboard the International Space Station have that opportunity as well. It's just a check-in to see how they're feeling after launch and on their journey. But as you mentioned, they're getting some sleep, and the Crew Dragon team here in Hawthorne is continuing to monitor the vehicle and then preparing for that next burn tomorrow morning. That's really the next big milestone for Dragon.
Yeah, and again, as we mentioned earlier, on Demo 2, they did have to do a bunch of tests and checking out the vehicle as they were making their way to the International Space Station. But today is not a test. They get to kind of coast along and enjoy the ride this time.
This question from Eric: how much spare time do astronauts get while on the space station? It varies. Their days are very busy. As we mentioned earlier, they are planned down to 5-minute increments. They're constantly working on hundreds of science experiments and maintenance aboard the space station to keep it flying. But they do typically tend to get weekends off. They might have to do a little bit of housekeeping on the weekends. You know, nobody gets off without any chores, even when you go to space.
Well, that leads me to a question of my own. What do they do on the weekends?
They love to look out the window. That's a popular pastime. They all get training while on the ground on how to use some of those massive cameras and lenses that are on the space station. So photography is a big hobby while they're there. Mm-hmm. They can talk with their family. They can also, sometimes watch movies or TV. We'll work to get them a sports game if it's on, and they're a big fan. And some of them will read. It's a lot of the same of passing time like we do here on Earth.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I do recall that Victor was given the advice to take more pictures. So as you mentioned, photography as a pastime. Hopefully we'll get some cool pictures from Victor and the rest of the crew during their time on board.
Absolutely. And then this question from Josh: are vegetables still growing in the International Space Station? I'm not sure about right this moment, but I can tell you there are some radish seeds awaiting the crew. When they get to the International Space Station, they'll try growing some radishes on the station. It's apparently very similar to Mizuna lettuce, which has proven to grow very well on the space station. We want to grow these vegetables, that way crews can have food, fresh food especially, with them when they go on longer duration missions like to the moon and Mars. It'll keep us from having to pack as much on the way up there, and they can just grow it on the way instead.
Do they get to try some of these vegetables that they're growing on the station?
Yes, they do. They will make a salad. I saw a picture of NASA astronaut Jessica Meir one time. She had a bag and had put the lettuce in it and maybe a little dressing or something and mixed all up and was eating a salad. And I know that they love getting to taste that because they don't get a lot of fresh food on orbit. It all has to be, thermostabilized. That way it can be reheated at any time.
We've got another question. How many beds, quote unquote, are on the International Space Station, and will somebody have to sleep in the Dragon?
Well, beds are kind of configurable on the space station since, there's no up and down in space. Essentially, it's all microgravity. But they do have crew quarters, so it's those private areas where they each get their own little space. Right now, there are 6 spaces in crew quarters. And so Mike Hopkins, commander of Crew Dragon, will be sleeping on Crew Dragon for at least a little while during his mission.
What is the temperature inside of the International Space Station? Oh, that's a good question.
That is a good question. I'm not 100% sure on that either. We'll have to find out and get back to you.
I wonder if the crew has to kind of fight for what temperature they like it inside of the station.
I just heard it's the crew preference, but they don't have a thermostat up there. So they have to call down to the ground and have one of the flight controllers change it for them.
Very interesting.
I would have to go behind my crew members' backs all the time and ask them to turn it up a little because it's too cold.
Right, so keep sending in your questions. Use the hashtag AskNASA if you want us to read your question and answer it on air. We are going to take a break right now, but we will be back to answer more of those questions.
And SpaceX, this is Resilience.
Go ahead, Resilience.
Hey, we just want to let you guys know that you are welcome back on board.
Copy, Dragon. We'll get that in work. And Dragon SpaceX, we are on board with you.
You've got
And we've got some live views from the International Space Station looking back at Earth.
You're watching live as the Crew 1 crew aboard Crew Dragon make their way to the International Space Station. That's the view you're getting right now. It's from the space station itself, looking down as it flies just southeast of Madagascar, 266 statute miles over Earth. Crew Dragon had an on-time launch tonight at 7:27 p.m. Eastern Time. We are tracking a couple of issues with the prop heaters. Those are the heaters that keep the propellant warm for the Draco thrusters to use aboard Crew Dragon. We're waiting to gather more data on that. Meanwhile, the crew are out of their suits. They've probably enjoyed their dinner meal by now. We've also completed the phase burn. That was the first out of 5 major burns for Crew Dragon on the way to the space station. And the next burn is not until tomorrow morning. That'll be the boost burn. So in between that time, our crew is going to get the chance to get a little sleep. But right now, still cruising on the way to the space station. There you go, your live look inside Crew Dragon Resilience. And one of those seats is vacant right there. It looks like Commander Mike Hopkins is out of his seat. You can see Victor Glover and those 3 display screens where they're able to track the mission. You can also see those are not their spacesuits anymore. They've changed into some comfort garments, getting cozy for the ride. And that should also help them sleep a little bit better tonight once we get into their sleep period a few hours from now.
And as you can see live, they have now revealed to us the 0G indicator, and it looked like a little baby Yoda.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if we might hear a little bit more about that later, that choice, but did look like another crew member floating around with them.
Yeah. Pretty awesome live views inside of the cabin. Very cool to see them as they're actually coasting to the International Space Station.
Yeah, first 4-person capsule that has ever flown, and so that's another big first for the mission. We did just lose our views with the capsule, but just momentarily we are out of range of the ground stations. It's something that we see with the International Space Station as well as it moves in and out of TDRS, or tracking data and relay satellite systems signals. So we'll wait to regain that communication, that video, I should say, with the crew. Meanwhile, you've got a view of Mission Control Hawthorne on your right. It's just right beside us, actually, monitoring all of the systems aboard Crew Dragon. And meanwhile, in Houston, we have Mission Control Houston monitoring all of the systems aboard the International Space Station and preparing for the arrival tomorrow.
What you're seeing on your screen is Mission Control Hawthorne here. And Leah and I are going to take a short break, but we'll be back. Continue to send in your questions on Twitter with the hashtag AskNASA, and maybe we'll be able to read some of them and answer them live. But we'll be right back after this break.
And SpaceX, this is Dragon for temperature.
Go ahead, Dragon.
I just got a quick question for you. We've gone through 9 increments on the baffle, incrementing it towards warmer, and the temperature hasn't really changed at all. It's still at 23.18 degrees C.
Copy, Dragon. You've incremented 9 times on that baffle, and temperature hasn't changed, holding at 20.18 C.
That was 23.18.
Copy, 23.18. Let me follow up with folks here and get back to you.
Okay, that was a good readback.
And you heard the CORE, the Crew Operations and Resources Engineer here in Hawthorne, speaking with the crew aboard Crew Dragon, now on their way to the International Space Station after lifting off at 7:27 p.m. Eastern Time tonight. They were just discussing how to increase the temperature inside Crew Dragon itself, trying to get a little cozier. They are now out of their suits, in their comfortable clothes, and winding down for the evening before they shift into a sleep schedule in just a few hours. Meanwhile, this is a view from the International Space Station, and the International Space Station is flying 271 statute miles south of Australia. So they are in an orbital daytime at the moment. That's why it's bright outside. And this leads us to our first Ask NASA question.
Yeah, do they experience sunrise and sunset day and nights like we do?
And they kind of do, except they see a ton more than we do. Yeah. They see 16 sunrises and sunsets a day because they are orbiting Earth every 90 minutes. So every 45 minutes, you're getting a sunrise or a sunset. And it's pretty beautiful from the photos that I've seen. But yes, they do see, 8 times more sunrises and sunsets than we see in a normal day. And this question, are astronauts in the Dragon allowed to open their suits while traveling toward the space station?
And as if you tuned in to the live view inside of the cabin, they are allowed to open their suits. Once they get into the coast phase, they are able to get out of their suits, get comfortable, get into some comfy clothes. It is a 27-hour ride to the International Space Station today. So it is very imperative that they are comfortable on this ride there. So they are out of their suits until they have to come back.
Yeah, they'll actually put them on tomorrow just before the approach initiation phase once we prepare for that docking.
Got another question. Is there any cargo in the trunk?
The trunk can hold unpressurized cargo, but I don't believe there is any unpressurized cargo in the trunk today. So the only cargo today are the Crew Dragon crew members themselves.
We've got another question. Which docking port will the SpaceX Crew Dragon will be using on arrival to the International Space Station? So I believe they are using Node 2, Port 2, which is one of the 2 international docking adapters that are on the International Space Station.
And it's the exact same one that Demo 2, Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley docked to just this past May. It seems like yesterday and last year all simultaneously, but
time flies.
Yes, that it will be the same docking station as Demo 2 was earlier this year. And this question, what type of propellant is used with the Draco thrusters? This is called something called hypergol, and this is made up of 2 different types of propellant, monomethylhydrazine and nitrogen tetroxide. So these automatically combust whenever combined and provide the propellant that we're looking for in microgravity.
Right, they don't need an ignition source for this type of fuel, so it's just those 2. And yeah, that's all they need. Got another question. What does space food look like?
Space food sometimes, and actually a lot of the time, looks very similar to food on Earth. I've had the opportunity a few times to go into our space food testing lab and then also to see how crew members rehydrate food. And a lot of it is very similar. It's cooked and prepared on Earth just like you would at home. And then it is thermostabilized, it's dehydrated.
Dragon SpaceX for cabin temperature.
And go ahead for cabin temp.
And Dragon, we'd like to ask you to increment the temperature just a few more times, 3 more increments warmer, and wait about 10 minutes. At that time, if cabin temperature is still the same or cooler, then we can assess if we'd like to go into a warmer mixing mode.
Okay, we will do that. So that should give us most of the increments for the warming side, and I didn't realize we had another option. So we'll put that in work, and we'll let you know what happens.
Sounds good, Dragon.
Some words from the Corps to the crew, still working that internal temperature as they continue their mission to the space station. And this camera on the International Space Station, just zooming in a little bit, here's a view of some of our vehicles currently at the International Space Station. One of those being the Cygnus resupply craft that we mentioned, down on the far right with those solar arrays that look like symbols. We've also got a Soyuz resupply, or a Soyuz craft that carried Kate Rubins, Sergei Ryzhikov, and Sergei Kutsverchkov to the International Space Station just last month. And just a reminder, we are tracking an issue with some prop heaters. These are heaters that keep the propellant warm for those Draco thrusters. We are still waiting for more information on those heaters and any next steps. So we're keeping you up to date as we get that information. But just a reminder, we still are standing by and tracking that.
We do have more questions. What % of the rocket can be reused? That's a really great question. We do reuse the first stage booster, so after flight, the first stage booster does come back to land. We also have reused our fairing halves as well as our cargo Dragon, and eventually we'll be reusing our Crew Dragon as well. So I'm not sure the percentage of all the pieces and components of the rocket, but the first stage booster, fairings, and the Dragon vehicles can all be reused.
This question asking why the crew members of Crew 1 wear mirrors on their wrists. We see something similar when it comes to crew members out on a spacewalk. They also wear mirrors on their wrist, and that's because their controls are on the front panel of their suits, and so they can't look down in their helmets and read those controls. So they're written backwards, so they can use the mirror to read what those controls are and make any changes. I'm not sure if there's a similar system on the Crew Dragon suits. I don't think there are any controls on the front panel. You know, that was a pretty sleek design, so I'm not sure exactly the purpose of that mirror, but it may be something similar. And just a reminder, we're taking these questions through the hashtag AskNASA on Twitter, so feel free to send those in, and we'll do our very best to answer them on air.
Got another question. How many astronauts are waiting for the crew on the International Space Station?
We currently have 1 astronaut and 2 cosmonauts aboard the International Space Station. NASA's Kate Rubins is on her 2nd flight to the International Space Station, and she is joined by Sergei Ryzhikov and Sergei Kutsverchkov, both of the Roscosmos Space Agency. And as I mentioned, they all just launched last month, and I know they are excited to more than double their crew by welcoming the Crew 1 astronauts on board.
And we are getting some live views. What you're seeing on your screen is live views from the International Space Station as they're waiting for our Crew 1 members to reach station and join on board. So we're going to continue to enjoy some of these views. Keep sending in your questions on Twitter using the hashtag AskNASA, and we will read them and hopefully answer them live. And we're going to take a quick break, so send in your questions and we'll come back and hopefully read some more questions for you.
And just before we go, another reminder, we are still tracking those prop heater issues. The propellant, or the heaters that heat the propellant for those Draco thrusters on Crew Dragon. Teams are looking at some steps to troubleshoot the heaters coming up soon. So they're trying to get them all back online, and we are standing by with to gather information and share it with you as soon as possible. So we're not going anywhere. Stick with us, and we're going to take a short break.
Dragon SpaceX for prop heaters.
Dragon, we're ready.
Dragon, for awareness, we're going to attempt to re-enable the heaters with higher acceptable limits to gather additional data. Prop temperatures are still looking good.
Okay, so you said you're going to attempt to re-enable them with higher temperature limits. Is that correct?
We're going to re-enable them with higher resistance limits to gather additional data. How copy?
Okay, we copy. You're going to re-enable them with higher resistance limits to collect data. And we won't really be able to see anything up here. Is that correct on our systems page?
And that's affirmative, Dragon.
Okay, we copy, and I guess currently I'm showing the lowest temp is 75, a little over 75 degrees on the two side of the oxidizer and one side on the fuel.
And we see the same, Dragon.
Okay, it seems like they've stayed pretty stable. Is that expected?
That is expected, Dragon, yes.
Okay, copy.
So you just heard from the Corps that they are still troubleshooting those prop issues. Those are the propellant heaters. They heat the fuel in the tanks aboard Dragon, the fuel that's used in those Draco thrusters. The tanks that are impacted are holding steadily at 75 degrees Fahrenheit, so that's a good sign. That's above our current margin, and so they're taking some steps to troubleshoot those heaters. They're trying to get them all back online. They're going to restart them with higher resistance levels. So waiting to learn more about how those tests go, but we are monitoring it every step of the way and continuing to learn and share as we can.